The stagecoach lurched to a stop in front of the dusty general store in Murphy's, California, and Felicity Warren stumbled out wearing nothing but tattered burlap that barely covered her bruised body, her feet wrapped in blood-stained rags, and her long auburn hair matted with the dirt of 3 states. Ryan Fletcher had been leaning against the hitching post outside the store, waiting for a shipment of barbed wire, when he saw her fall to her knees in the September heat of 1878. His first instinct was to look away, to give the woman some dignity, but something in the way she held her head high despite her obvious shame made him stride forward instead. "Madam." His voice was gentle as he approached, his shadow falling over her like a shield from the dozen sets of eyes already gathering on the wooden sidewalks. "Are you hurt?" Felicity looked up at him with eyes the color of storm clouds, and Ryan felt something shift in his chest. Despite the filth and the rags, despite the bruises blooming purple on her pale skin, she met his gaze with a dignity that took his breath away. "I am supposed to meet a man named Jeremiah Cartwright," she said, her voice hoarse but steady. "He sent for me. I am to be his bride." Ryan's jaw tightened. He knew Jeremiah Cartwright, a cruel drunk who ran a failing ranch 10 miles north of town. The man had been bragging in the saloon last week about ordering himself a wife from one of those marriage agencies back east, saying he needed someone to cook and clean and warm his bed. The way Cartwright had said it, with that mean glint in his eye, had made Ryan's skin crawl. "Cartwright's dead," said a voice from the crowd. Old Pete Morrison, the undertaker, stepped forward with his hat in his weathered hands. "Got himself kicked in the head by his own horse 3 days ago. Been in the ground since yesterday." The woman swayed where she knelt, and Ryan moved without thinking, catching her elbow to steady her. Through the thin burlap he could feel how thin she was, how her bones seemed too close to the surface. "I have nowhere to go," Felicity whispered, and for the first time her composure cracked. "I used every cent I had to get here. The agency took their fee up front. I have nothing." "You have something," Ryan said firmly, surprised by the conviction in his own voice. He shrugged out of his coat, a worn leather duster that had seen better days, and draped it around her shoulders. It swallowed her whole, hanging nearly to her ankles, but it covered her. "You have yourself, and that seems like plenty to me." The crowd was starting to murmur now, women whispering behind their fans, men shaking their heads. Mrs. Pemberton, the banker's wife and self-appointed moral authority of Murphy's, pushed to the front with her face pinched like she had been sucking lemons. "That woman cannot stay here looking like that," Mrs. Pemberton announced. "It is indecent. Someone should put her back on that stagecoach and send her wherever she came from." "She just said she has nowhere to go," Ryan replied, his voice taking on an edge. "And she is not going anywhere until she has had some food and water and a chance to rest." "And who exactly do you think you are, Ryan Fletcher, to decide such things?" Mrs. Pemberton's eyes narrowed. "You are just a ranch hand yourself, barely making ends meet on that patch of land your father left you." Ryan felt his face heat, but before he could respond, Felicity straightened her spine and stood, pulling his coat tighter around herself. Even barefoot, even dirty and bruised, she had a presence that commanded attention. "I apologize for any distress my appearance has caused," she said, her Eastern accent crisp and clear despite her obvious exhaustion. "I was robbed on the road from Sacramento. The men who attacked the coach took everything, including the clothes off our backs. The driver gave me this burlap sack because it was all he had. I am not indecent by choice, madam. I am indecent by circumstance, and there is a difference." The crowd fell silent. Even Mrs. Pemberton seemed momentarily at a loss for words. "The difference," Felicity continued, is that circumstances can change while character cannot. I may be wearing rags, but I am still a lady. And I may have lost everything, but I have not lost myself. Ryan felt something bloom in his chest, warm and bright. He had never heard anyone stand up to Mrs. Pemberton like that, certainly not someone who had every reason to feel broken and defeated. "You can stay at my place," he heard himself say, and then immediately wanted to kick himself when he saw Mrs. Pemberton's face light up with scandalized glee. "I mean, there is a spare room. It was my sister's before she married and moved to San Francisco. It has its own door, its own lock. You would be safe there, at least until we figure out what comes next." Felicity turned those storm-gray eyes on him again, and he saw tears gathering in them, though she blinked them back with fierce determination. "You do not even know me," she said softly. "No," Ryan agreed, "but I know what it is like to have nowhere to go and no one to turn to. When my parents died of fever 5 years ago, this whole town wrote me off as a lost cause, said I would never make anything of myself, that I should sell the ranch and move on. But a few people gave me a chance. I am just paying that forward. Well, Mrs. Pemberton huffed, we will see how this little arrangement works out. Mark my words, there will be talk." "There is always talk, Martha," said a new voice. Miss Clara Dawson, the schoolteacher and one of the few people in town who did not bend to Mrs. Pemberton's will, stepped forward with a basket over her arm. "And most of it is nonsense. Mr. Fletcher is offering Christian charity, and if you have a problem with that, perhaps you should examine your own heart." Mrs. Pemberton looked like she had been slapped, but she pressed her lips together and stalked off, her skirts kicking up dust. Miss Dawson approached Felicity with a kind smile. "I have some clothes that might fit you, dear. They belonged to my younger sister before she passed. I have been meaning to give them to someone who could use them. Why do not you come with me to the schoolhouse and get cleaned up? Then Mr. Fletcher can take you out to his ranch." "I cannot take your sister's clothes," Felicity protested. "That is too much." "Nonsense. They are just sitting in a trunk, doing no one any good. Sarah would have wanted someone to have them." Miss Dawson held out her hand. "Come along, dear. There is a pump behind the school where you can wash, and I have some soap and a towel." Felicity looked at Ryan, uncertainty clear on her bruised face. "I will be in debt to both of you." "You will be in debt to no one," Ryan said firmly. "Like you said, this is circumstance, not character. You did not choose any of this. Let people help you." Something shifted in Felicity's expression, a softening around her eyes. She nodded slowly and took Miss Dawson's offered hand. "I will be at the livery," Ryan told them. "I need to rent a wagon since I rode into town on horseback. Take your time. There is no rush." He watched them walk away, Felicity moving carefully on her wrapped feet, his coat still swallowing her frame. Old Pete came to stand beside him, tobacco tucked in his cheek. "You are taking on trouble there, boy," Pete said conversationally. "That woman has a past written all over her." "We all have pasts," Ryan replied. "Does not mean we should be defined by them." "True enough." Pete spat into the dust. "But Cartwright was a mean son of a gun. Makes a man wonder what kind of woman would agree to marry him sight unseen." "The desperate kind," Ryan said quietly. "The kind who had no other options. That does not make her bad, that makes her brave." Pete grunted but did not disagree. "Your mama would have liked her. She always did have a soft spot for strays and lost causes." Ryan smiled despite himself. "Yeah, she did. Remember when she insisted on nursing that half-dead coyote pup back to health? Pa said she was crazy, but she would not give up on it. And it grew up to be the best cattle dog your father ever had," Pete finished. "Funny how things work out sometimes." Ryan collected his horse from the hitching post and headed to the livery, his mind churning. What was he doing, bringing a strange woman to his ranch? He barely knew her, but something about the way she had held herself, the way she had spoken to Mrs. Pemberton with such quiet dignity had touched something deep inside him. The truth was, Ryan had been lonely. The ranch kept him busy from sunup to sundown, but the evenings were long and quiet. He ate his meals alone, read his books alone, went to bed alone. He had always told himself he was too busy for courting, too focused on making the ranch profitable to think about a wife. But seeing Felicity step off that stage, broken but unbowed, had awakened something in him he had not even known was sleeping. At the livery, he rented a wagon from Tom Wilson, who gave him a knowing look but kept his comments to himself. Ryan hitched up his horse and drove the wagon back through town to the schoolhouse. He arrived just as Miss Dawson and Felicity were emerging from the building. Ryan almost did not recognize her. Clean, with her auburn hair still damp but combed and braided over one shoulder, wearing a simple blue calico dress, Felicity looked like a different person. The bruises were still there, stark against her pale skin, and she moved with obvious pain, but there was color in her cheeks now and clarity in those storm-gray eyes. "Better?" Miss Dawson asked, looking pleased with herself. "Much," Felicity said, though her voice was tight with exhaustion. "Thank you for everything. You are most welcome, dear." Miss Dawson handed her a small bundle. "I put a few other dresses in there and some undergarments and a nightgown. There are also some shoes, though I am not sure they will fit. You have very small feet." Felicity took the bundle with hands that trembled slightly. "I do not know how I will ever repay you. Just take care of yourself," Miss Dawson said gently. "That will be payment enough." Ryan climbed down from the wagon and offered Felicity his hand. She hesitated for just a moment before placing her small, work-roughened hand in his. Her fingers were cold despite the September heat. He helped her up onto the wagon seat, noting how she winced when she put weight on her feet. The rags had been replaced with clean bandages, but he could see spots of blood seeping through. "Your feet are hurt bad," he observed as he climbed up beside her. "They will heal," Felicity said simply. "Everything heals given time." Ryan picked up the reins but did not immediately urge the horse forward. "Listen, I want you to know that what I said before about the room having its own lock, I meant that. You are safe with me. I am not looking to take advantage of you or expect anything from you. You have been through enough." Felicity looked at him for a long moment, studying his face with those penetrating gray eyes. "Why are you doing this? Really?" Ryan considered the question, wanting to give her an honest answer. "Because when I saw you step off that stage, holding your head high even though you had every reason to fall apart, I saw strength. Real strength. The kind that does not need fine clothes or perfect circumstances to shine through. And I figured anyone with that much strength deserves a chance to prove what they can do when life is not kicking them down. Queens do not need silk to shine," Felicity murmured, almost to herself. "That is what my mother used to say. She would tell me that true nobility comes from within, not from what you wear or how much money you have." "Your mother sounds like a wise woman." "She was," Felicity's voice caught. "She died 2 years ago, cholera. My father followed 6 months later. He just gave up, I think. He could not imagine life without her. I am sorry. So am I." She straightened her shoulders. "After they died, I tried to make it on my own in Boston, but it is an expensive city and I had no family, no connections. I worked as a seamstress for a while, but the factory where I worked burned down. Then I worked as a maid, but the man of the house had wandering hands, and when I complained, his wife threw me out without references. I was facing eviction when I saw an advertisement for a marriage agency. It seemed like the only option left." Ryan felt anger kindle in his chest, not at her but at all the circumstances that had pushed a woman like this into such desperation. That man should have been horsewhipped. A ghost of a smile crossed Felicity's face. I would have enjoyed watching that. But men like him never face consequences. The world does not work that way. Maybe it should, Ryan said firmly. He clicked his tongue and the horse started forward, pulling the wagon out of town toward the open country beyond. The ride to Ryan's ranch took about 40 minutes, following a dirt road that wound through golden hills dotted with oak trees. The land here was beautiful in a harsh way, all burnt grass and blue sky, the Sierra Nevada mountains rising in the distance like a promise of something greater. Felicity did not say much during the ride, but Ryan noticed how she took everything in, her eyes moving across the landscape with obvious interest. Despite her exhaustion, despite her injuries, she sat straight on the wagon seat, her hands folded in her lap over the bundle of clothes. "Have you always lived in California?" she asked finally. "Born and raised. My grandfather came out during the gold rush in '49. Did not find gold, but he found land, and that turned out to be worth more in the long run. My father inherited the ranch, and I inherited it from him. It is not much, about 300 acres, but it is mine. We run cattle mostly, some horses." Felicity glanced at him. "I thought you lived alone." "I do now. I have a couple of ranch hands who come in during busy seasons, but mostly it is just me. I meant the royal we, I guess." Ryan felt his face heat with embarrassment. "Sorry, I am not used to having someone to talk to. I probably sound like an idiot." "You do not sound like an idiot," Felicity said softly. "You sound like someone who cares about his land. That is admirable." They crested a low hill, and Ryan's ranch came into view. It was not impressive by any standard, just a modest wooden house with a covered porch, a barn that needed a new coat of paint, a few outbuildings and corrals holding a dozen cattle and 3 horses. But it was home, and Ryan felt a swell of pride as he always did when he saw it. "Here we are," he said, guiding the wagon up the long drive. "It is not fancy, but it is solid. Good bones, my father used to say." "It is lovely," Felicity said, and she sounded like she meant it. "It looks like a place where someone could build a life." Ryan pulled the wagon up in front of the house and hopped down, then came around to help Felicity. This time she did not hesitate before taking his hand, and he felt that same jolt of something warm and bright when their palms met. Inside, the house was clean but obviously lacking a woman's touch. The furniture was functional rather than comfortable. The walls were bare, and everything had a slightly dusty quality despite Ryan's best efforts. He led Felicity down a short hallway to the room that had been his sister's. It was small but bright, with a window overlooking the back pasture, a narrow bed covered with a faded quilt, a dresser, and a chair. Someone had left a rag rug on the floor, and there were still marks on the walls where his sister had tacked up pictures and ribbons. "I know it is not much," Ryan said, suddenly seeing the room through her eyes and finding it wanting. "It is perfect," Felicity said firmly. She set her bundle of clothes on the bed and turned to face him. "Mr. Fletcher, I need you to understand something. I know what people will think about this arrangement. I know what Mrs. Pemberton is probably already telling everyone in town, but I want you to know that I am grateful, truly grateful for your kindness, and I will find a way to repay you, I swear it." "You do not have to swear anything," Ryan said. "And please call me Ryan. Mr. Fletcher makes me feel like my father. Then you should call me Felicity. Miss Warren makes me feel like a schoolmarm." She managed a small smile, the first genuine one he had seen from her. "Felicity," Ryan said, trying out the name. It suited her somehow. Elegant but with an underlying strength. "Are you hungry? I was going to make some dinner. Nothing fancy, just beans and cornbread, but you are welcome to join me." "I am starving," Felicity admitted. I have not eaten since yesterday morning. Then sit down before you fall down, and I will get something cooking. Ryan gestured toward the chair. There is a water pitcher and basin on the dresser if you want to wash up more. Privy is out back. I will call you when the food is ready. He left her alone, pulling the door shut behind him, and headed to the kitchen. As he moved around the familiar space, stoking the fire in the stove and pulling out ingredients, his mind kept drifting back to the woman now occupying his sister's old room. What was he doing? What was he thinking? He had just invited a complete stranger into his home, a woman with a mysterious past and an uncertain future. It was reckless. It was foolish. It was completely unlike his usual careful, measured approach to life. But when he remembered the way she had looked at him, the way she had stood up to Mrs. Pemberton, the way she had said queens do not need silk to shine, something in his chest tightened with an emotion he could not quite name. It was not pity. Pity implied looking down on someone, and Ryan had the distinct feeling that Felicity Warren would always find a way to look people in the eye, no matter how far she had fallen. It was respect, he realized. He respected her. And more than that, he was intrigued by her. Who was this woman who could maintain such dignity in the face of such disaster? What kind of strength did it take to step off a stage coach in rags and still hold your head high? The beans were bubbling, and the cornbread was in the oven when Felicity appeared in the kitchen doorway. She had changed into one of the other dresses Miss Dawson had given her, a simple gray cotton that was a bit too big but clean and modest. Her hair was still damp, falling loose around her shoulders now instead of braided. "Can I help with anything?" she asked. "You can sit down and rest," Ryan said firmly. "Those feet of yours need time to heal." "I am not helpless," Felicity replied, but there was no heat in her voice, just a statement of fact. "I would rather be useful, please." Ryan studied her for a moment, then nodded toward the cupboard. "All right. Plates and cups are in there. There is a tablecloth in the drawer below if you want to set the table. It is probably pretty wrinkled, though. I am not much for ironing." "Neither am I, to be honest," Felicity said, and Ryan caught another glimpse of that small smile. They worked together in comfortable silence, Felicity setting the table while Ryan finished the meal. It felt strange having someone else in his space, but not bad strange, just different. The house felt more alive somehow, more like a home and less like just a place where he slept between long days of work. When the food was ready, they sat down across from each other at the small kitchen table. Ryan dished out generous portions, noting how Felicity's eyes widened at the amount of food on her plate. "I cannot eat all this," she protested. "Eat what you can," Ryan said. "You are too thin. You need to build your strength back up." They ate in silence for a few minutes. Ryan tried not to watch her too obviously, but he could not help noticing the way she ate, quickly but with careful manners, like someone who had been taught proper etiquette but was currently too hungry to fully observe it. "This is good," Felicity said, breaking the silence. "Really good." "Where did you learn to cook?" "My mother, mostly. She made sure both me and my sister knew our way around a kitchen, said it was a necessary life skill, no matter your gender." Ryan smiled at the memory. "My sister hated it, but I did not mind." There is something satisfying about taking basic ingredients and turning them into something nourishing. "My mother taught me to sew," Felicity said. "She was a seamstress, very talented. She could take a scrap of fabric and turn it into something beautiful. I inherited some of her skill, though I never had her eye for design." "Is that what you did in Boston? Sewing, among other things?" Felicity's expression clouded. "I took whatever work I could find. I am not proud of all of it, but I did what I had to do to survive. I never compromised my morals, if that is what you are wondering, but I came close a few times. Hunger has a way of making you consider things you never thought you would. Ryan felt that flash of anger again, at a world that would push someone to such extremes. "You do not have to explain yourself to me." "I think I do, though," Felicity said quietly. "You have taken me into your home, fed me, clothed me. You deserve to know what kind of person you are helping." "I already know what kind of person you are," Ryan replied. "You are the kind who holds her head high even when life knocks her down. That tells me everything I need to know." Felicity's eyes glistened with sudden tears, and she blinked them back quickly. "You do not know me well enough to say that. Maybe not. But I am a pretty good judge of character, and my gut is telling me you are exactly what you appear to be, someone who deserves a second chance." They finished the meal in thoughtful silence. Afterward, Felicity insisted on helping clean up, despite Ryan's protests. She washed while he dried, their hands occasionally brushing in the soapy water, each touch sending a small spark up Ryan's arm. The sun was setting by the time they finished, painting the sky outside the window in shades of orange and pink. Felicity stood at the window, watching the colors fade, her expression wistful. "It is beautiful here," she said softly. "I had forgotten what it was like to see the horizon. In Boston, there were always buildings blocking the view." "It is one of the things I love most about this place," Ryan admitted. "The space, the freedom. Some people find it lonely, but I find it peaceful." "I think I could find it peaceful too," Felicity murmured. She turned to face him, and in the fading light her gray eyes looked darker, more mysterious. "Ryan, I want to make you a proposition." Ryan's heart started beating faster. "What kind of proposition?" "Let me work for my keep. I can cook and clean, I can sew and mend. I am not afraid of hard work. In exchange, you can give me room and board while I figure out my next steps. That way neither of us has to feel like this is charity. It is simply a business arrangement." Ryan considered her offer. Part of him wanted to refuse, to tell her she did not owe him anything. But he understood the pride that made her offer, the need to feel useful rather than dependent. "All right," he said finally, "but on one condition. You take time to heal first. Those feet need at least a few days of rest before you start taking on chores. And even then, you go easy until you are fully recovered." Felicity's shoulders relaxed slightly. "Agreed. Thank you, Ryan. You have no idea what this means to me." "I think I do," Ryan said quietly. "Like I said, I know what it is like to need a hand up." Over the next few days, they fell into a cautious routine. Felicity stayed off her feet as much as she could, spending her time mending Ryan's clothes, which were in desperate need of attention, and planning meals based on the limited supplies in his pantry. Ryan went about his daily work on the ranch, but he found himself hurrying through his chores so he could get back to the house. It was not that he thought she needed supervision. It was just that he enjoyed her company. Felicity had a sharp mind and a dry sense of humor that emerged once she started feeling more comfortable. They would talk over meals, discussing everything from politics to philosophy to the best way to train a stubborn horse. Ryan learned that she had been educated at a ladies' academy before her parents died, that she spoke French and could play piano, that she had once dreamed of becoming a teacher herself. She learned that he had taught himself to read beyond the basics, that he was fascinated by modern agricultural techniques, that he secretly wrote poetry in a journal he kept hidden in his nightstand. On the fourth day, Doc Hadley came out to the ranch to check on Felicity's feet. He was an old-timer who had been practicing medicine in Murphy's since before Ryan was born, and his opinion still carried weight in the community. "Well, young lady," Doc Hadley said after examining her feet, "you are lucky. No infection and the cuts are healing well. Another week or so and you should be good as new. Just keep them clean and wrapped and do not overdo it." I will make sure she does not, Ryan said firmly. Doc Hadley gave him a long look over his spectacles. I am sure you will. The whole town is buzzing about your house guest, you know. Some folks think you are a saint, others think you are a fool, and a few think you are taking advantage of the girl. Let them think what they want, Ryan said, his jaw tightening. I know the truth and so does she. That is all that matters. Easy, son, I am not criticizing. Truth be told, I think what you are doing is admirable. Not many men would stick their neck out like this. Doc Hadley packed up his bag. But you should be prepared for some blowback. Mrs. Pemberton is making sure everyone knows about your living arrangement. After the doctor left, Ryan found Felicity standing on the porch, staring out at the hills. The evening breeze was picking up, pulling strands of her auburn hair loose from the bun she had pinned it in. I am causing problems for you, she said without turning around. I should leave. You are not going anywhere, Ryan said, coming to stand beside her. Not until you are ready. I do not care what the gossips say. But I care, Felicity said, finally turning to face him. You have been nothing but kind to me, and I am repaying you by damaging your reputation. That is not fair to you. Life is not fair, Ryan said bluntly. If it was, you would not have been robbed and left in rags. You would not have come out here to marry a man who turned out to be dead. But here we are, dealing with what is, not what should be. And what is that you need a safe place to recover, and I have one to offer. Everything else is just noise. Felicity studied his face, her gray eyes searching. Why do you care so much? You barely know me. I do not know, Ryan admitted. I just know that from the moment I saw you step off that stage, something in me recognized something in you. Like calls to like, maybe. We are both alone in the world, both fighting to make something of ourselves against the odds. Maybe that is enough. Maybe, Felicity said softly. She reached out and touched his hand where it rested on the porch railing, just a brief touch of her fingertips against his knuckles, but it sent electricity racing through Ryan's entire body. Thank you for everything. That night, Ryan lay in his bed staring at the ceiling, acutely aware that Felicity was just down the hall. He could hear small sounds, the creak of bed springs, the rustle of fabric, and each sound made his heart beat faster. He was falling for her. The realization hit him like a physical blow. Somewhere in the past 4 days, between shared meals and quiet conversations, between watching her mend his clothes and listening to her laugh at his terrible jokes, he had started falling in love with Felicity Warren. It was insane. It was impractical. It was the worst possible timing. But it was also undeniable. The question was, what was he going to do about it? She had come to California expecting to marry a stranger for security, only to find that option taken from her. She had made it clear she wanted their arrangement to be a business transaction, a way to maintain her pride and independence. The last thing she probably wanted was for him to complicate things with romantic feelings. But then he remembered the way she had touched his hand on the porch, that brief contact that had felt like it meant something more. Maybe he was not the only one feeling this pull between them. Ryan rolled over and punched his pillow, trying to find a comfortable position. He would wait, he decided. He would give her time to heal, time to figure out what she wanted. And if she decided to move on to find her own way in the world, he would help her do that, even if it killed him. A week passed, then 2. Felicity's feet healed enough for her to move around more freely, and she threw herself into taking care of the house with an energy that both impressed and worried Ryan. She cooked elaborate meals from his limited ingredients, scrubbed floors that had not seen a good cleaning in years, and spent hours in the evening mending not just his clothes, but also his torn curtains and worn blankets. You are going to work yourself into exhaustion, Ryan told her one evening, finding her still sewing by lamplight long after dinner was finished. I am just repaying my debt, Felicity replied, not looking up from the shirt she was mending. You do not have a debt, Ryan said, frustrated. How many times do I have to tell you that? Until I believe it. Felicity finally looked up and Ryan saw shadows under her eyes. I need to feel useful, Ryan. I need to feel like I am earning my place here. Otherwise, I am just taking charity and I cannot do that. I cannot be that person. Ryan sat down across from her, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. Why not? Why is it so hard for you to accept help? Felicity set down her sewing, her hands trembling slightly. Because my whole life, I was taught that I should be able to take care of myself. My mother used to say that a woman who depends on others is a woman who can be controlled. After she died, after my father gave up, I swore I would never be in that position. I would never need anyone so badly that losing them would destroy me. But that is not living, Ryan said gently. That is just surviving. There is a difference, I know. Felicity's voice was barely a whisper, but surviving is all I know how to do anymore. Ryan reached across the space between them and took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. Her skin was rough from work, her knuckles red from scrubbing, but her hand fit perfectly in his. Then maybe it is time to learn something new, he said. Maybe it is time to learn how to live again. Felicity's eyes filled with tears, and this time she let them fall. I am so tired, Ryan. I am tired of being strong. I am tired of holding my head high. I am tired of pretending that I am not terrified every single moment of every single day. Then stop pretending, Ryan said. He stood and pulled her to her feet, then wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. She stiffened for just a moment, then melted against him, her face pressed into his chest, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Ryan held her while she cried, one hand stroking her hair, the other firm against her back. He could feel her heart beating against his chest, could feel the warmth of her breath through his shirt. It was the most intimate moment he had ever shared with anyone, more intimate than any physical act, because she was trusting him with her pain. When her tears finally subsided, Felicity pulled back slightly, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I am sorry. I did not mean to fall apart on you. You are not falling apart, Ryan said firmly. You are just being human. There is no shame in that. Felicity looked up at him, and in the lamplight, her tear-stained face was the most beautiful thing Ryan had ever seen. Without thinking, without planning, he leaned down and pressed his lips to her forehead, a gentle kiss that was more comfort than passion. But when he pulled back, he saw something shift in Felicity's expression. Her gray eyes darkened, her lips parted slightly, and suddenly the air between them was charged with a different kind of electricity. Ryan, she whispered, and the way she said his name made his heart race. Yes. Kiss me, really kiss me. Ryan's breath caught in his throat. Are you sure? I am not sure of anything anymore, Felicity admitted, but I am sure that I want this. I want you. That was all the permission Ryan needed. He cupped her face in his hands, marveling at how delicate she felt, how her skin was like silk under his work-roughened palms. Then he lowered his head and kissed her properly, his lips meeting hers with a tenderness that made his chest ache. Felicity made a small sound in the back of her throat and wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, became more urgent, more desperate. Ryan could taste salt from her tears and something sweeter underneath, something that was uniquely her. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ryan rested his forehead against hers. I have wanted to do that since the day you stepped off that stagecoach. Really? Felicity sounded surprised, but I looked awful. You looked like the strongest person I had ever seen, Ryan said honestly. And I could not stop thinking about you. I could not stop thinking about you either, Felicity confessed. I kept telling myself it was just gratitude, that I was just grateful for your help, but it is more than that. It has been more than that from the beginning. So what do we do now? Ryan asked. Felicity pulled back enough to look him in the eye. I do not know. I came here expecting to marry a stranger out of desperation. I do not want that to be my story with you. I do not want you to feel obligated to me, and I do not want to be with you just because I have nowhere else to go. That is not why I want you, Ryan said fiercely. I want you because you are brilliant and brave and beautiful. I want you because talking to you makes me feel more alive than I have in years. I want you because when I imagine my future now, you are in it. Felicity's breath hitched. Ryan, we have only known each other for 2 weeks. I know. And I am not saying we have to rush into anything. I am just saying that what I feel for you is real, and it is not based on obligation or convenience. It is based on who you are. Queens do not need silk to shine, Felicity murmured, repeating what she had said that first day. My mother used to tell me that, but I never really believed it until you showed me it was true. You looked at me when I was at my lowest and still saw something worth saving. I saw someone worth knowing, Ryan corrected. And the more I know you, the more I want to keep knowing you. They stood there in the lamplight, holding each other, neither quite willing to break the moment. Finally, Felicity stepped back with obvious reluctance. I should go to bed, she said. It is late. Yeah, it is. Ryan did not want to let her go, but he forced himself to release her. Felicity. Yes, take tomorrow off. No cooking, no cleaning, no mending, just rest, please. What will we do instead? I have an idea, Ryan smiled. But it is a surprise. Do you trust me? Felicity studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Yes, I trust you. Those 3 words meant more to Ryan than any declaration of love could have. He watched her walk down the hall to her room, saw the door close softly behind her, and let out a long breath. He was in deep, he realized. Completely, hopelessly, wonderfully in deep. The next morning dawned clear and warm, perfect for what Ryan had planned. He woke early and packed a basket with bread, cheese, apples, and a jar of lemonade. Then he saddled his gentlest horse, a mare named Daisy with a sweet temperament and an easy gait. Felicity emerged from her room looking rested, her hair loose around her shoulders, wearing the blue calico dress she had been wearing that first day. When she saw the horse and the basket, her eyes lit up with curiosity. What is all this? I am taking you on a tour of the property, Ryan announced. You have been cooped up in the house for 2 weeks. I figured it is time you see more of the ranch. I do not know how to ride, Felicity admitted. That is all right. You will ride with me. Ryan swung up into the saddle, then held out his hand. Come on. I will not let you fall. Felicity hesitated for just a moment, then took his hand and let him pull her up. He settled her in front of him, one arm around her waist to keep her secure, acutely aware of every point where their bodies touched. Ready? He asked, his mouth close to her ear. Ready, Felicity said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. They set off at a walk, following a trail that wound through Ryan's property. He pointed out landmarks as they went, explaining the history of the land, his plans for the future. Felicity asked intelligent questions and made observations that showed she was really listening, really engaging with what he was saying. They stopped by a creek that ran through the northwest corner of the property, dismounting so Daisy could drink, and they could eat the lunch Ryan had packed. The spot was shaded by ancient oak trees, the water burbling over smooth stones and wildflowers growing in patches along the bank. This is my favorite place on the whole ranch, Ryan said, spreading out a blanket he had brought. I come here when I need to think. I can see why. Felicity sat down on the blanket, tucking her skirt around her legs. It is peaceful. Like time moves slower here. They ate and talked, the conversation flowing easily between them. Ryan told her about his dreams for the ranch, about wanting to build it into something that could support a family. Felicity talked about her own dreams, about maybe opening a dress shop someday, about finding a place where she belonged. "You could belong here," Ryan said before he could stop himself. "If you wanted to." Felicity looked at him, her gray eyes serious. "Is that what you want, for me to stay?" "Yes," Ryan said simply. "I know it is fast, I know we barely know each other, but I have never felt this way about anyone before, and I do not want to let it go without at least trying to see where it leads." "I am scared," Felicity admitted. "I am scared of depending on someone again. I am scared of losing myself in someone else. But I am also scared of walking away from you and spending the rest of my life wondering what might have been." "Then stay," Ryan urged. "Stay and let us figure this out together. No pressure, no expectations. Just see what happens." Felicity reached out and took his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. "Okay, I will stay." The relief that flooded through Ryan was so intense it was almost painful. He brought her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles, a gesture that made her blush prettily. They stayed by the creek until the afternoon sun started to slant golden through the trees. On the ride back, Felicity relaxed against Ryan's chest, her head resting on his shoulder, and he felt a contentment he had never known before. This was what home felt like, he realized. Not a place, but a person. Felicity made him feel at home in a way his ranch, for all that he loved it, never had. Over the following weeks, their relationship deepened. They worked side by side during the day, Ryan teaching Felicity about ranch work while she continued to take care of the house. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch and talk until the stars came out, sharing their pasts, their hopes, their fears. Ryan learned that Felicity had a beautiful singing voice, and he would find excuses to be near the house when she was doing chores because she sang while she worked. Felicity learned that Ryan was a voracious reader despite his limited formal education, and she started reading aloud to him in the evenings, the two of them sharing his worn collection of books. They kissed often, sweet kisses that gradually became more passionate as their desire for each other grew. But Ryan was careful not to push for more, not to take advantage of Felicity's vulnerable position. He wanted her, desperately, but he wanted her to be sure. He wanted her to choose him out of love, not necessity. One evening in early November, nearly 2 months after Felicity had arrived, Ryan came back to the house after a long day of mending fences to find the kitchen filled with the most incredible smell. Felicity was standing at the stove, her face flushed from the heat, stirring something in a large pot. "What is all this?" Ryan asked, pulling off his work gloves. "I went into town today," Felicity announced. "Miss Dawson invited me to join the ladies' sewing circle, and afterward I stopped at the general store. I used some of the money I earned from doing mending work for the other ladies to buy ingredients. I wanted to make you a proper thank you dinner." "You do not have to thank me," Ryan started, but Felicity held up a hand. "I know I do not have to, I want to. There is a difference." She smiled at him. "Now go wash up, dinner will be ready in 20 minutes. Ryan did as he was told, taking the time to not just wash his hands and face, but to change into a clean shirt. When he returned to the kitchen, Felicity had set the table with actual napkins and had even picked wildflowers to put in a jar in the center. The meal was elaborate by their usual standards: roast chicken, vegetables in butter sauce, fresh bread, and for dessert, an apple pie that made Ryan's mouth water just looking at it. "This is amazing," Ryan said after his first bite. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" "My mother taught me the basics, and I picked up the rest working in other people's homes," Felicity said. "I enjoy cooking when I have actual ingredients to work with." They ate slowly, savoring both the food and the company. When the meal was finished and the dishes were cleaned, Felicity asked Ryan to come sit with her on the porch. The November evening was cool but not cold, the sky clear and full of stars. They sat in the two rocking chairs Ryan had built with his father years ago, close enough that they could hold hands across the space between them. "I have been thinking," Felicity said after a few minutes of comfortable silence, "about my future, about what I want." Ryan's heart started beating faster. "And what do you want?" "I want to stay here, with you, permanently." Felicity turned to look at him, her gray eyes reflecting the starlight. "I know it is not conventional, me living here unmarried, and I know the town gossips are having a field day with it. But I do not care what they think anymore. I care what you think, I care how I feel, and I feel like I am home here." "Marry me," Ryan blurted out. He had not planned to propose, not tonight, not like this, but suddenly it was the only thing he wanted. "Marry me, Felicity. Not because you have to, not because you need security, but because we love each other." Felicity's breath caught. "You love me." "Of course I love you," Ryan said, standing and pulling her to her feet. "I have loved you since you stood up to Mrs. Pemberton in those rags and refused to be ashamed. I have loved you through every conversation, every shared meal, every moment we have spent together. You are the strongest, bravest, most incredible woman I have ever met, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving to you that you made the right choice in staying." Tears were streaming down Felicity's face, but she was smiling. "I love you too. I think I started loving you the moment you gave me your coat and told me I had myself, and that was enough. You saw me when I had nothing, and you still thought I was worth something." "You are worth everything," Ryan said fiercely. He cupped her face in his hands, wiping away her tears with his thumbs. "So is that a yes? Will you marry me?" "Yes," Felicity said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, I will marry you." Ryan kissed her then, pouring all his love, all his relief, all his joy into that kiss. Felicity kissed him back with equal fervor, her arms wrapped tight around his neck, her body pressed against his. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Ryan rested his forehead against hers. "I do not have a ring yet. I will get you one, I promise, the best one I can afford." "I do not need a ring," Felicity said. "I just need you." "Well, you are getting both," Ryan said firmly. "You deserve all the beautiful things I can give you." "You already gave me the most beautiful thing," Felicity murmured. "You gave me back my dignity. You gave me back myself." They were married 3 weeks later in a simple ceremony at the church in Murphy's. Miss Dawson stood up with Felicity, and Doc Hadley stood up with Ryan. The whole town came, some out of genuine happiness for the couple, others out of curiosity about the scandalous mail-order bride who had ended up marrying a different man. Mrs. Pemberton attended with a pinched expression, clearly disapproving but not wanting to miss the event. But even her sourness could not dampen the joy of the day. Felicity wore a dress she had sewn herself from fabric Miss Dawson had helped her buy, a simple cream-colored cotton that she had embroidered with delicate flowers around the neckline and hem. She wore her hair loose, with wildflowers woven into it, and to Ryan, she looked more beautiful than any queen in silk and jewels. When the preacher pronounced them man and wife and Ryan kissed his bride, the church erupted in applause. As they walked back down the aisle together, Ryan saw tears streaming down more than one face, and he realized that their story had touched people. The mail-order bride who arrived in rags and the cowboy who dressed her had become a symbol of something larger, a reminder that dignity and worth come from within, not from circumstances. The reception was held at the town hall, with food and music and dancing. Ryan had never been much of a dancer, but he waltzed with his wife under lanterns strung from the rafters and felt like he could do anything. "Happy," he asked, holding her close as they swayed to the music. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Felicity replied, her gray eyes shining. "When I stepped off that stagecoach, I thought my life was over, but it was really just beginning." "Our life," Ryan corrected. "It is our life now, our life," Felicity agreed, smiling up at him. "I like the sound of that." They stayed at the reception until late, then rode back to the ranch in the wagon Ryan had borrowed for the occasion. The November night was cold now, and Ryan wrapped Felicity in a blanket, tucking it around her carefully. When they reached home, Ryan lifted Felicity from the wagon and carried her over the threshold, making her laugh with delight. Inside, he set her down gently, then lit the lamps, filling the house with warm light. "I am nervous," Felicity admitted, her cheeks flushing pink. "Is that silly?" "Not silly at all," Ryan said gently. He took her hands in his. "We can wait if you want. There is no rush." "I do not want to wait," Felicity said, meeting his eyes. "I want to be your wife in every way. I just do not want to disappoint you." "You could never disappoint me," Ryan said firmly. He led her to their bedroom, the one that had been his alone but was now theirs together. "I love you, Felicity. That is all that matters." That night, they became husband and wife in truth as well as name. Ryan was gentle and patient, taking his time to show Felicity how much he loved her. She responded with a passion that matched his own, and when they finally lay together afterward, tangled in each other's arms, both felt complete in a way they never had before. "I never knew it could be like that," Felicity whispered, her head on Ryan's chest, listening to his heartbeat. "The other women used to talk about their husbands like it was a duty, something to be endured. But that was beautiful." "It is beautiful when two people love each other," Ryan said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "And I do love you, Felicity Fletcher." "Felicity Fletcher," she repeated, testing out the name. "I like it. It sounds strong." "You are strong," Ryan said. "The strongest person I know." They fell asleep wrapped in each other, warm and safe and home. The first winter of their marriage was harsh, with heavy snows that made travel difficult and kept them isolated on the ranch for weeks at a time. But Ryan and Felicity did not mind. They were happy in their cocoon, working together during the day and warming each other during the long nights. Felicity took over the household completely, managing everything with an efficiency that freed Ryan to focus on the ranch work. But she also started taking on sewing work from ladies in town, using her skills to bring in extra money. Ryan protested at first, saying she did not need to work, but Felicity insisted. "I like having my own money," she explained. "It makes me feel independent, like I am contributing equally to our partnership." "You contribute plenty just by being here," Ryan said, but he understood. Felicity needed to feel useful, needed to feel like she was pulling her own weight. It was part of who she was, and he loved that about her. By spring, they had saved enough money to make some improvements to the ranch. They painted the barn, fixed the fence that had been sagging, and bought 3 more head of cattle. The ranch was growing, slowly but surely, into something substantial. One morning in April, Ryan came in from feeding the animals to find Felicity sitting at the kitchen table with a strange expression on her face. "What is wrong?" he asked immediately, his heart jumping with concern. "Nothing is wrong," Felicity said slowly. "At least, I do not think anything is wrong. I think I might be pregnant." Ryan felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. "Pregnant? Are you sure?" "Not completely sure, but all the signs are there." Felicity looked up at him with wide eyes. "Are you happy?" "I know we have not talked about children yet." "Happy?" Ryan crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. "I am thrilled, terrified but thrilled." Felicity laughed, a sound of pure relief. "Me too. Both of those things." Doc Hadley confirmed the pregnancy a week later. estimating that the baby would come in late October or early November. Felicity bloomed as her belly grew, developing a glow that made her more beautiful than ever. Ryan found himself constantly amazed by the miracle happening inside her, by the fact that they had created a new life together. The town ladies, even Mrs. Pemberton, softened toward Felicity during her pregnancy. They brought gifts of baby clothes and blankets, shared advice about childbirth and child rearing, and generally made her feel welcomed into the community in a way she had not been before. "It is funny," Felicity said one evening as she sat on the porch with her sewing, her hands resting on her swollen belly. "A year ago I was alone in the world with nothing. Now I have a husband, a home, a baby on the way, and friends. It is almost too much good fortune to believe." "You deserve all of it," Ryan said, sitting beside her and placing his hand over hers on her belly. "You worked for it. You earned it." "We worked for it," Felicity corrected. "This is our life, remember, not just mine." Their son was born on a cold night in November, almost exactly 1 year after their wedding. The labor was long and difficult, and Ryan paced the kitchen while Miss Dawson and Doc Hadley attended Felicity in the bedroom. Every cry of pain from his wife made him want to break down the door and demand they do something. But Miss Dawson kept shooing him away, telling him to make himself useful by boiling water and tearing cloth for bandages. Finally, just as dawn was breaking, Ryan heard a new sound, the lusty cry of a newborn baby. He froze in the kitchen, his heart in his throat, until Miss Dawson emerged with a smile on her face. "You have a son," she announced. "A big, healthy boy, and your wife is tired but fine." Ryan practically ran to the bedroom, skidding to a stop when he saw Felicity propped up against the pillows, exhausted but radiant, holding a bundle wrapped in a blanket. Doc Hadley was packing up his instruments with a satisfied expression. "Come meet your son," Felicity said softly, her eyes shining with tears. Ryan approached slowly, almost reverently. When Felicity pulled back the blanket to reveal a red, wrinkled little face with a shock of dark hair, Ryan felt his entire world shift on its axis. "He is perfect," Ryan breathed. "He is absolutely perfect. He looks like you," Felicity said. "He has your nose." "Poor kid," Ryan joked weakly, but his voice was thick with emotion. They named him Samuel Ryan Fletcher after both of their fathers. Samuel was a good baby, healthy and strong, with his mother's gray eyes and his father's serious expression. Ryan fell completely in love with his son, marveling at how something so small could be so perfect. Being parents changed them, deepened their bond. They worked together seamlessly, taking turns with night feedings, sharing the endless tasks that came with caring for an infant. Ryan watched Felicity with their son and fell in love with her all over again, seeing a tenderness in her that she had kept hidden away for so long. The years that followed were good ones. The ranch prospered, growing larger and more profitable. Ryan hired on 2 permanent ranch hands to help with the work, which allowed him more time with his family. Felicity continued her sewing business, but on a smaller scale, focusing more on being a mother. When Samuel was 3, they had a second child, a daughter they named Rose. She was a complete contrast to her serious older brother, all smiles and sunshine from the moment she was born. 2 years after Rose came another son, William, and 2 years after that, a second daughter, Margaret. The house that had once felt empty now rang with the sounds of children laughing, running, fighting, and making up. The ranch was no longer just a place Ryan worked. It was a legacy he was building for his children. Through it all, Ryan and Felicity's love for each other only grew stronger. They still sat on the porch in the evenings after the children were in bed, holding hands and talking about their day. They still kissed in the kitchen when they thought no one was looking. They still looked at each other with a wonder that neither took for granted. One evening, about 15 years after Felicity had first arrived in Murphy's, they sat on the porch watching the sunset. Samuel, now a young man of 14, was out in the barn teaching his younger siblings how to rope. The sounds of their laughter drifted across the yard. "Do you ever think about that day?" Ryan asked. "The day you arrived, all the time," Felicity said. She was older now, fine lines at the corners of her eyes, strands of silver threading through her auburn hair, but to Ryan, she was more beautiful than ever. "I think about the girl I was, so scared and alone, thinking my life was over. I wish I could go back and tell her that everything was going to be all right, better than all right." "I think about it too," Ryan admitted. "I think about how close I came to not helping you. I almost walked away, you know. I almost decided it was not my problem. But something made me stop, made me turn around and offer you my coat. Fate," Felicity said softly, "or providence, or maybe just good luck. Whatever it was, I am grateful for it every day." Ryan squeezed her hand. "You made my life complete, Felicity, you and the children. I never knew I could be this happy." "Queens do not need silk to shine," Felicity murmured, repeating the words that had become something of a motto for them both. "But having someone who sees your shine, even when you are covered in rags, that is the real treasure." "You have always shone," Ryan said firmly. "From the first moment I saw you, and you always will." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun sink below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. From the barn came the sound of Rose's triumphant shout as she successfully roped a fence post, followed by her brother's grudging congratulations. This was what mattered, Ryan thought. Not wealth or status or what the neighbors thought. Just this: a home, a family, and a love that had started in the worst of circumstances and had grown into something strong enough to weather anything. Felicity leaned her head on Ryan's shoulder, and he pressed a kiss to her silver-threaded hair. They had come so far from that day in September 1878 when a desperate woman in rags had stumbled off a stagecoach and into his life. They had built something beautiful together, something that would last long after they were gone. Their children would inherit the ranch, yes. But more importantly, they would inherit the lesson their parents had lived. That true worth comes from within, that dignity cannot be taken away by circumstances, and that love, real love, sees past the surface to the soul underneath. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Ryan and Felicity sat together, hand in hand, watching their children play in the yard. They had started with nothing but hope and determination, and they had built an empire of love. The mail-order bride had arrived in rags, and the cowboy had dressed her, but the truth they had discovered together was even more profound. Queens do not need silk to shine. They only need to be seen by someone who recognizes their worth. And in each other, Ryan and Felicity had found exactly that. The rest, as they would tell their grandchildren years later, was just the natural result of two souls recognizing their match. Everything else, the prosperity and the children and the long, happy years together, had simply been the universe's way of rewarding them for having the courage to choose love over fear, hope over despair, and each other over loneliness. It was a good story, a true story, and one that would be told in Murphy's for generations to come. The story of the mail-order bride who arrived in rags and the cowboy who saw past them to the queen underneath. And they lived, as all the best stories end, happily ever after. Years continued to pass, each one adding new layers to the life Ryan and Felicity had built together. Samuel grew into a fine young man, serious and hardworking like his father, with a good head for business and a gentle way with animals. At 19, He began courting the daughter of a neighboring rancher, a sweet girl named Emma who made him smile in a way that reminded Ryan of how Felicity made him feel. Rose, at 16, was as spirited as ever, with a sharp mind and a quick tongue that got her into trouble more often than not. She had inherited her mother's talent with a needle and her father's stubborn determination. She talked about going to San Francisco to study fashion design, and Ryan knew that, despite his desire to keep her close, he would support whatever path she chose. William, at 14, was the dreamer of the family, always with his nose in a book or staring at the stars. He wanted to be a teacher, to share knowledge with others, and Felicity encouraged this passion, seeing echoes of her own unfulfilled dreams in her son's ambitions. Little Margaret, at 12, was still finding her way. She loved the ranch and loved working alongside her father, learning everything she could about raising cattle and horses. She had no interest in dresses or sewing or any of the things that were supposed to interest young ladies, and neither Ryan nor Felicity pushed her to be anything other than herself. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Ryan surprised Felicity with a gift he had been planning for months. He led her out to the pasture behind the house where he had built a small workshop. "What is this?" Felicity asked, looking confused. "This is for you," Ryan said, opening the door to reveal a space set up with a large cutting table, shelves for fabric and supplies, and a new sewing machine, the latest model from Singer. "You have been taking in sewing from the back bedroom for years, always making do with cramped space and poor lighting. I figured it was time you had a proper place to work." Felicity stared at the workshop, her hands covering her mouth. Tears streamed down her face as she walked inside, running her fingers over the smooth wood of the table, the gleaming metal of the sewing machine. "Ryan, this must have cost a fortune," she said. "You are worth a fortune," Ryan replied simply. "You have given me 20 years of happiness, 4 incredible children, and a life beyond anything I ever dreamed of. The least I can do is give you a proper place to pursue your passion." Felicity turned and threw her arms around him, holding him tight. "I love you so much. Sometimes I still cannot believe this is my life, that I get to wake up next to you every morning." "Believe it," Ryan said, holding her close, "because this is real and it is forever." That night they hosted a party at the ranch to celebrate their anniversary. The whole town came, including Mrs. Pemberton, who had mellowed considerably over the years and had even admitted, in a rare moment of vulnerability, that she had been wrong about Felicity. Miss Dawson, now retired from teaching but still sharp as a tack, gave a toast. 20 years ago, I watched a young woman step off a stagecoach in desperate circumstances, and I watched a young man see past those circumstances to the person underneath. Today, we celebrate not just the love they have built together, but the reminder they have given all of us. That true worth cannot be measured by what we wear or what we own, but by who we are and how we treat others. The party lasted late into the night, with music and dancing and laughter. Ryan watched his children dance with their friends, watched Felicity laugh with the women who had become her friends over the years, and felt a profound sense of gratitude. This was more than he had ever hoped for. This was everything. As the guests began to leave, as the lanterns were extinguished one by one, Ryan and Felicity walked through their home, saying good night to their children. Each child received a hug and a kiss. Each one told they were loved. Finally, alone in their bedroom, Felicity began to take down her hair, pulling out the pins one by one. Ryan watched her from the bed, the same way he had watched her do this simple task thousands of times before, and felt his heart swell with love. "What are you thinking about?" Felicity asked, catching his eye in the mirror. "I am thinking about how lucky I am," Ryan said honestly. How one choice, one moment of deciding to help instead of walking away, changed my entire life. It changed both our lives, Felicity said. She set down her brush and came to sit beside him on the bed. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Jeremiah Cartwright had not died, if I had married him like I was supposed to? I try not to, Ryan admitted. The thought of you with someone else, especially someone like him, makes me feel sick. I think I would have left him, Felicity said thoughtfully. Eventually, I would have found the courage to leave, even if it meant having nothing again. Because after losing my parents, after losing everything I had known, I learned something important. I could survive anything. And I did not want to just survive anymore. I wanted to live. And do you feel like you are living now? Ryan asked. Felicity smiled, that beautiful smile that still made his heart skip a beat even after 20 years. I feel like I am thriving. We both are. We took the worst circumstances and made something beautiful from them. They made love that night with the tenderness and passion of long married couples who still desire each other deeply. Afterward, lying in the darkness with Felicity's head on his chest, Ryan thought about all the years that had passed and all the years still to come. They were no longer young. Ryan was 43 now, his hair starting to gray at the temples, his body marked by years of hard work. Felicity was 41, with lines around her eyes and a few extra pounds from 4 pregnancies. But they were still them, still the cowboy and the mail-order bride who had found each other against all odds. I love you, Ryan whispered into the darkness. I love you too, Felicity whispered back. Always. The years continued their steady march forward. Samuel married his Emma in a beautiful ceremony that had Ryan thinking about his own wedding, remembering how young and hopeful they had been. Samuel and Emma stayed on the ranch, building a small house on the eastern section of the property. Within a year, they gave Ryan and Felicity their first grandchild, a daughter named Felicity Rose, whom everyone called Rosie. Holding his granddaughter for the first time, feeling the weight of her small body in his arms, Ryan felt the circle complete itself. His own daughter, Rose, now studying in San Francisco and doing well, had written to say how excited she was to be an aunt. William was at teacher's college, sending regular letters full of enthusiasm about his studies. Margaret, now 16, had become Ryan's right hand on the ranch, capable and confident. We did good, Felicity said, standing beside him as he held baby Rosie. Look at this beautiful family we made. We did better than good, Ryan replied. We did amazing. On a warm evening in June, 25 years after Felicity had first arrived in Murphy's, Ryan and Felicity sat on their porch watching the sunset. It was their ritual, one they had maintained through all the busy years of raising children and building their life together. Do you remember what I said to you that first day? Ryan asked. After Mrs. Pemberton said you could not stay, you said I had something, Felicity replied. You said I had myself, and that seemed like plenty. I was right, Ryan said. It was more than plenty, it was everything. Felicity leaned against him, fitting into his side the way she always had. Queens do not need silk to shine. Your mother would have been proud of us, you know, of how we built this life together. She would have loved you, Ryan agreed. My father, too. They always believed that what matters is what is inside a person, not what is on the outside. They would have seen in you what I saw. And what did you see? Felicity asked, even though they had had this conversation many times over the years. I saw a queen in rags, Ryan said softly. I saw someone who refused to let circumstances define her. I saw strength and dignity and grace, all wrapped up in a person who had every reason to give up but did not. I saw you, Felicity, the real you, and I fell in love. I saw you too, Felicity replied. I saw a man who could look past the surface to the person underneath. I saw kindness and integrity and honor. I saw someone who made me want to be brave, who made me believe that I deserved good things. You saved me, Ryan. We saved each other, Ryan corrected. I was just existing before you came. I was surviving, just like you said you were, but you taught me how to really live. They sat in comfortable silence as the sky turned from gold to pink to purple. From inside the house, they could hear Margaret preparing dinner, singing as she worked. From the eastern section of the property, they could hear Samuel's voice calling to his horses as he brought them in for the night. "This is enough," Felicity said quietly. "This moment, right here with you beside me and our family around us, this is enough. This is everything." "It is," Ryan agreed. "It really is." As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Ryan thought about the journey they had taken together. From that first moment when Felicity had stumbled off the stagecoach in rags, through all the years of struggle and triumph, to this peaceful evening surrounded by the life they had built. It had been a remarkable journey. They had faced prejudice and gossip, hardship and loss. They had celebrated births and mourned deaths. They had worked hard and loved harder. They had proven, day after day, year after year, that true worth comes from within. The mail-order bride who had arrived in rags had become a pillar of the community, respected for her skill and her kindness. The cowboy who had offered his coat to a stranger had become a successful rancher and a beloved father and grandfather. Together, they had created something that would last long after they were gone. Their children would tell their children about the day Felicity Warren stepped off a stagecoach and into Ryan Fletcher's life. They would tell about the kindness that had sparked a love that lasted a lifetime. They would tell about the lesson their grandparents had lived, that queens do not need silk to shine, and that true love sees past the surface to the soul underneath. As night fell completely and the stars blazed overhead, Ryan and Felicity went inside, hand in hand, ready for whatever years remained to them. They had lived a good life, a full life, a life rich in the things that mattered. And they had done it together, the mail-order bride and the cowboy, proving every single day that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected circumstances, and that love, real love, is strong enough to overcome anything.